The Regulation G guides continue today with Rayquaza, and guys, I'm going to be honest, there is not a lot of good things that Rayquaza gets you. Personally, I think it's outclassed. I personally don't think I would be running it at all. However, I know there's a lot of people that play this game not necessarily to win, but they just want to use like their favorite restricted. If you are trying to win with Rayquaza, this is the slot to be. I'm going to give you some sets that you can potentially try to work with, but just know that it is probably outclassed in the majority of restricted picking. It does get two things for it though. And it gets airlock. Airlock is massive. It helps a ton versus all the weather going around right now, right? Non-weather based restricteds are running Pelipper a lot of the times now. There's a lot of Rain Dance. There's a lot of Sunny Day. There's Koraidon. There's Kyogre, right? There is a lot of options for weather, and being able to shut that down actually does give you a decent chunk of benefits, right? So I'm not going to completely trash this Pokemon. Airlock does do something, right? So now that Airlock does something, you're going to pair this with Dragon Ascent 99% of the time. This is my selling point on Rayquaza, in my opinion. Flying coverage is incredible, right? There's not a lot of resists to Dragon Ascent right now, right? You're going to remove a lot of the non-restricted, especially all those grass types like the Amoonguses, like the Rillabooms, right? Getting rid of those is incredible. Getting rid of the Urshifus is also amazing, right? And then you just hit everything pretty hard. Obviously, the big steel types are going to kind of wall you out a little bit, but you know what? That is what it is. There's not much you can really do about that. You're not using Rayquaza to beat those pieces, right? You're generally going to pair this with Dragon Ascent, basically flying type close combat, and why not? One of the major concerns I have with Rayquaza is honestly just its stat distribution, because in theory, it's got a pretty good base stat total, right? It is a legendary Pokemon. My concern is you're wasting a lot of it, because you can run a mixed set, but you're wasting so much because you have 150 attack and 150 special attack, whereas now you kind of flip-flop between both. Whereas if you would have just taken it and said this Pokemon is either going to be a special attacker or a physical attacker, and you would have had one or the other and not had this weird divide, the rest of your stats could have been bulked up so much more, right? Like if you keep the 150 attack stat, you drop this, let's say, to 120, and then give yourself more speed or give yourself more defenses, right? If that was the stat distribution, I would be a lot more inclined to say, hey, Rayquaza might actually be a good Pokemon. You're just wasting the bulk of your stats in one of the two stats that you're probably not going to click, right? Because your best set is Dragon Ascent Extreme Speed, and we'll get into that in a second, right? This is what's going around right now. Terra Normal E-Speed. You're basically a Dragonite, but you're a restricted version of a Dragonite that needs to hold an item to not get your attack stat lowered. It just doesn't feel as strong. I mean, Dragonite's a little bit of a budget option. You do have a little bit more attack on Rayquaza, so I see why you may want to opt for this over Dragonite. However, is the benefit worth it? Right, so we're just going to jump right into set one. And like I said, guys, I don't think Rayquaza is going to be a Pokemon that's winning a regional. I don't think Rayquaza is going to be a Pokemon that's really going to make top cut at a regional. But if you're trying to use it, I would go with set one. This is where I would go with Rayquaza if I were told to use Rayquaza and said you have to use Rayquaza. This is what I would do. I would put this beside a Shenpao. I would say I'm going to be able to get Swords Dances up because I'll have like an instant for Fake Out. I'll have an Amoonguss for Redirection. So I'll try to get a Swords Dance up. And then once I get my Swords Dance up, I'm going to go Terra Normal. I'm going to send Extreme Speeds at my +2 Extreme Speeds, and I'm just going to send damage. That is my concept with this. And then I just have the flying coverage to beat the likes of those grass types that are so pesky in the format, because flying coverage is broken. It always has been, right? And then you're just going to close it off with Protect so you don't die. And then Airlock is just a bonus, right? Moving into the EV spread here, guys, there's really nothing crazy. I said we have to commit to damage. The whole concept is to get the +2 and send E-Speeds. We're committing to damage. We're going max attack. You could, in theory, argue dropping this to like a 236 to hit the second bump and put a little bit more bulk in. It's probably just as fine, but I didn't really see the point. Like I said, my whole concept here was hit hard with E-Speed. I might as well commit to hitting hard with E-Speed with this Rayquaza. So committing to that. And then I said, what do I want to do? Because realistically, I don't need speed, right? If my concept, and I'm committing to the concept of the fact that I am Terra Normal E-Speed and I'm going to click that 90% of the time after I get a Swords Dance up, I don't necessarily need speed. So the question is, what do we want to outspeed? In this case, we have seen a few max speed Incineroars hover around into format. So I think outspeeding that would be very nice. Incineroar is one of those Pokemon that I don't think you get the knockout on with a +2 E-Speed, but a +2 Dragon Ascent definitely will remove it. So making sure you're faster than the fastest Incineroars out there so you can't lose your Clear Amulet feels pretty good, right? I think that's a pretty decent spot to hit. That's what I hit. But once again, guys, you can do pretty much a lot of things here where you just kind of either drop your speed down pretty low. I would go 117 is Pelipper. I would at the very least go 118. Right? I would not go lower than 118. If you're going to go 118, you might as well go 119. 119 hits a lot of speed tiers for when things are at -1. I like the concept there. You could go 119. There's a ton of options here, right? But like overall, you could just go faster. I think 124 is a decent spot to hit. But overall, you could just go all bulk. You don't need speed at all, right? You could just go slower and just commit. And just say, I'm going to run bulk on this piece, and we're going to send it. Right? That's definitely something you can do. And I believe I was, what, 130, 156 in HP? Is that what I had when I started this? 164? Yeah, okay. It was 164. Anyways, whatever it was, this is going to live Life Orb, Terra Ghost, Life Orb, Astro Barrage from the Calyrex, which you can't E-Speed, so it felt good that maybe I should be able to live something. But like I said, you don't need speed. You can go all bulk. This is kind of the concept, right? Live that plus, live the Terra Ghost, Life Orb, Astro Barrage, hit hard, and then just a little bit of speed because I didn't really see another reason for it. But I don't think you really need the speed here. You can say, I don't need the speed. It's good. We can work without it. This is still the spread. You can play around with this, but if you're just going to look to slap something on as a starting point, this is probably a very solid starting point with a spread. In terms of set number 2 here, I basically did the exact same thing, but this time I put a Life Orb on it. There is nothing different going on here. I did want to talk about Dragon Dance because there's a trade-off here, right? Once again, if my whole concept is to click Terra Normal E-Speed, I think Swords Dance is 20 times better. Because if I'm committing to Terra Normal E-Speed and I'm setting up a Dragon Dance, I'm only getting to +1, and my E-Speed, my priority, I don't care about speed anyways, right? So I may as well just get to the +2, and then I'm doing more with the E-Speeds. It makes a little bit more sense. However, if your main priority with this piece is to have E-Speed as like a side option, and your main concern is to try and set up the +1, get some speed, and blow things up with Dragon Ascent, then Dragon Dance has a little bit more value. It really just depends on how you want to approach Rayquaza. Once again, you can do the Dragon Dance with a Clear Amulet as well. I'm not against that either. I just wanted to feature a different item for the sake of featuring a different item, right? You could easily put a Clear Amulet on this and the set would function just the same. Again, with the EV spread though, guys, max attack, the whole point with Rayquaza, in my opinion, is to send damage. If you are not sending damage with this piece, I really don't understand why you're running it, right? Once again, same concept applies. You could go down to 236, hit the bump, and you're chilling. 68 is the optimal Life Orb number, so you're losing the same amount of P, but same amount of HP as you would with a lower amount of HP, but you have the optimal percentage for that because you're still taking 18 when an 18 health takes less of your total HP than if you were sitting at like 180, right? Anyways, it's a minor optimization. You don't need it, but it's something there. I liked it. 4-4 in defenses for the sake of it, and then 138. And the concept of 138 is when I get the +1, this will put me at a speed stat of 207, and being at a speed stat of 207 will outpace Iron Bundle if their terrain is not active. So if you are pairing this with maybe something like a Rillaboom and you set up a Dragon Dance, you can now outpace the Iron Bundles without having to worry, right? Once you just switch the terrain over and all of a sudden you outpace Iron Bundle. Is that worth it? I don't know. It's a speed stat I wanted to hit and it makes sense to use with Dragon Dance. There's not much else to say, right? Like if you opt for Dragon Dance, I don't mind having the speed, because you're leveraging something else, right? You are saying I value having speed and I value clicking fast Dragon Ascents more than I value hitting harder and clicking E-Speed more often, right? It really just depends on how you run it. If you want my opinion, set 1 all the way, go Clear Amulet, go leverage those E-Speeds, click Swords Dance. That to me is the most scary of the Rayquaza options, and that's where I would go with it if I were to run it. Now, you also have set 3 here. And set 3, guys, I started building this and I said, oh, I'm going to showcase a special Rayquaza set, right? Because we have 150 special attack. So then I started looking into it and Air Slash is just a terrible move. 75 base power, guys. It just doesn't hit hard enough. It's not worth it. Overheat is fun, but I'm not sure what you're clicking it on. See, the special Rayquaza set was actually really fun when people couldn't terrestrialize, because you'd have things like Ferrothorn in the metagame, right? You'd have those grass types that just wouldn't be able to get out of you clicking Overheat. You'd have those steel types that you could click Earth Power into. With the ability for a Pokemon to terrestrialize now, it's okay, well, they have a steel type, right? And I want to click Overheat into it, but if they just Terra the steel type, Overheat's kind of useless, right? I don't think the upside of having the special option on Rayquaza is anywhere as high as it once was. Now, however, what you do get on the special side is you have access to your item. You can pretty much do whatever you want now. You're not binded to the clear amulet as you are, I think, with the physical set. So you do have options on the item. Like, you could go max, maybe a focus sash. I don't love it, right? You could still, once again, just run a life orb, right? I didn't finish this set because I don't think this set is good. But there is options to go special. I wouldn't. And we're going to wrap this one up, guys, because at this point, we're just rambling. Set 1, if you're trying to use Rayquaza, this is where I would go. This is where I would start. You can play around with the EVs, find a speed tier that you like. But once again, I don't think speed is all that important. Your main game plan with Rayquaza here is going to be going for a Swords Dance if you can get it off early. And then you're going to just send Terra Normal E-Speeds. And you're just going to hope you can do as much damage as you can. And that's the game plan with this piece, right? There isn't much other game plans, right? And the problem now is you've got Miraidon having just won the regional. It destroys Rayquaza. Like, you don't win that matchup. Like, yeah, maybe you can get the +2, maybe you can drop Miraidon, but like, the fact of the matter, Miraidon also has support beside it as well. It's not that great. I don't love Rayquaza. I don't think it's great in the meta right now, but once again, guys, if you are trying to run Rayquaza just for fun, this is where I would start. This is the line I would look towards playing. But with that, I am going to wrap this guide up here. If you guys are enjoying these guides, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe. It really does help out the channel. But with that, I'm going to get on out of here. I'll catch you all in a future video.